Valhalla, a warrior's paradise or an eternal prison. In the heart of Norse mythology, amidst tales of gods, giants, and the world's eventual doom, lies a concept that has captivated the imagination for centuries. Valhalla. The name itself, meaning Hall of the Slain, evokes images of a warrior's paradise, a golden-roofed hall where the brave who fall in battle are rewarded with an eternity of feasting and fighting. But beneath this shimmering veneer of martial glory, a more complex and unsettling picture emerges. Is Valhalla truly the ultimate reward for a life of valor? Or is it something far more sinister? A gilded cage, an eternal barracks where the chosen dead are but pawns in a cosmic game they are destined to lose? Welcome to the Eldritch Codex. Today we journey to Asgard, the realm of the gods, to dissect the legend of Valhalla. We will explore its gleaming halls, witness the daily lives of its warrior inhabitants, and question the very nature of this famed afterlife. Join us as we unravel the enigma of Valhalla, a warrior's paradise, or an eternal hopeless barracks. In the heart of every civilization, in the soul of every culture, lies a fundamental question whispered in the quiet moments before sleep, and screamed into the maelstrom of a final desperate battle. What comes after? For the seafaring people of the North, the Norsemen, whose lives were carved from harsh landscapes and defined by the sharp edge of a blade, this question was not one of philosophical abstraction. It was a matter of profound and immediate importance. Their world was one of stark contrasts: the biting cold of winter against the warmth of the hearth, the grim reality of a short, brutal life against the burning desire for a legacy that would echo in the sagas. And so they conceived of an afterlife that mirrored their highest ideals. An afterlife not of quiet, placid contemplation, but of thunderous, eternal glory. A reward reserved not for the meek or the pious in the conventional sense, but for the valiant, the courageous, the warrior who met their end not with a whimper in a sickbed, but with a roar on the battlefield, their lifeblood staining the soil of Midgard. This warrior's paradise, this ultimate aspiration, was known by a name that has thundered through the ages: Valhalla. To truly understand the gilded promise of Valhalla, we must first journey to its location. It is not found in some nebulous, cloudy heaven, but in a specific, named place of honor within the celestial fortress of the Aesir gods, Asgard. Here, amidst the divine halls and dwellings of the gods, lies a domain called Glacier, the radiant home. And within this radiant home stands the most magnificent structure ever conceived, the great hall of the All-Father, Odin. Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain. Our most vivid descriptions of this incredible edifice come from the ancient verses of the Poetic Edda, specifically in the poem Grimnismal. In these verses, the god Odin himself, disguised as the traveler Grimnir, describes his home in breathtaking detail. This is not a description born of mortal fancy. It is presented as divine truth, a glimpse into the architecture of the gods. Imagine, if you will, a hall so vast that its true dimensions defy human comprehension. Its roof is not thatched with common straw or roofed with slate. Instead, it is brilliantly tiled with solid gold shields, thousands upon thousands of them, catching the light of Asgard and blazing with a celestial fire that can be seen from leagues away. These are the very shields of the heroes who dwell within, a testament to their valor now serving as the crowning glory of their eternal home. Look closer at its construction. The very rafters that support this golden canopy are not hewn from the mighty oaks of earthly forests. They are fashioned from polished spear shafts, perfectly straight and impossibly strong, gleaming in the hall's inner light. The air itself seems to hum with the latent martial energy of these weapons. And upon the benches where the hall's residents sit, there are no simple furs or cloths. The seats are strewn with gleaming coats of mail, the burnished burnies of fallen warriors, a constant reminder of the path one must walk to earn a place in this hallowed hall. Odin tells us that a great wolf, a symbol of the ferocity of battle, hangs before the western doors. Above it, a majestic eagle, a creature of keen sight and sovereign power, perpetually hovers, surveying all who approach. These are not mere decorations. They are primal symbols, eternal sentinels guarding this martial sanctuary. And the scale of Valhalla is perhaps best understood through its entrances. The hall does not have 1 or 10, or even 100 gates. It boasts 540 doors. Each one is built on such a colossal scale that 800 warriors can march through it simultaneously shoulder to shoulder, without breaking stride. This is not a detail of convenience. It is a statement of purpose, a hint of the hall's true function that we will explore later. But for the warrior dreaming of this paradise, it is a vision of unimaginable grandeur, a promise that they will be part of something immense, a fellowship of staggering size and strength. But who are the fortunate souls chosen to inhabit this splendid palace? What life must be lived, what death must be earned to gain entry? They are the Einherjar. The name itself is evocative, often translated as Army of One, or those who fight alone, signifying their status as elite, peerless champions. They are the best of the best, the cream of humanity's warriors, handpicked from the countless battlefields across the ages. To become one of the Einherjar was to be elevated beyond the common fate of mortals. The Norse believed that the vast majority of the dead, those who succumbed to sickness, old age, or accident, were destined for a different realm. Helheim. Ruled by the goddess Hel, Loki's daughter, this was not necessarily a place of punishment like the Christian hell, but it was uniformly depicted as a gloomy, dreary, and dishonorable place. To go to hell was to fade into a gray, misty obscurity. For a culture that prized action, reputation, and glory above all else, such an end was to be avoided at all costs. This is why the manner of one's death was of paramount importance. The path to Valhalla was narrow, and its gate was death in glorious combat. A warrior had to die with a weapon in their hand, their boots on the field of battle. This belief was so deeply ingrained that sagas tell of elderly, dying warriors having a spear placed in their hand, or even being wounded by one, in a desperate, final attempt to qualify for Odin's hall. To die straw dead, as they called a peaceful death in bed, was to forfeit the ultimate prize. The selection of these elite warriors is not left to chance or happenstance. The Allfather Odin does not simply wait for the worthy to arrive. He is an active recruiter, and his agents in this grand enterprise are among the most iconic and powerful figures in all of Norse mythology, the Valkyries. Their name means choosers of the slain, and their role is exactly that. They are divine warrior maidens, beautiful and terrible in equal measure, who serve Odin as his personal emissaries. Clad in gleaming armor, they ride through the skies above the battlefields of Midgard on magnificent steeds, sometimes depicted as winged horses, at other times as fierce wolves. They are the arbiters of fate in the heat of combat. It is they who weave the web of war, they who decide who will live to fight another day, and who will be granted the honor of a glorious death. To witness a Valkyrie on the battlefield was to know that your fate was being weighed in the balance by the gods themselves. They were not passive observers. They were active participants, sometimes seen with drawn swords, guiding the flow of battle to ensure Odin's will was done. In the poem Derelge, a group of Valkyries are depicted as weaving a gruesome loom, using men's entrails for thread, severed heads for weights, and swords for shuttles, literally weaving the outcome of an impending battle. They are figures of immense and terrifying power. Yet, for the warrior deemed worthy, the appearance of a Valkyrie was a moment of supreme triumph. To be chosen was the ultimate validation of a life dedicated to courage. The sagas speak of the Valkyrie's kiss, a final moment of contact, a divine acknowledgement as the warrior's spirit was lifted from their fallen body. They would then be escorted on their final heroic journey, across the shimmering Bifrost Bridge, to the very gates of Valhalla. It was a hero's procession, leaving behind the grit and grime of a mortal end for the shining promise of a divine beginning. This process transforms death from a tragedy into a promotion, a graduation to a higher state of being. And what a beginning it is! Life within Valhalla, as described in the ancient texts, is a meticulously crafted paradise for the warrior spirit. It is an existence stripped of all the mundane worries of mortal life, hunger, sickness, fear, and boredom, and replaced with an endless cycle of what the warrior loves most. The day for an Einherjar begins with the call to arms. But this is not a grim duty, it is a joyous routine. The heroes rise, don their magnificent armor, and grasp the familiar hilts of their swords and axes. They stream out of the 540 doors into the great field of Avor in Asgard, a divine training ground. Here they spend the entire day engaged in ferocious, exhilarating combat. This is not mere sparring. It is all-out war. They charge, they shield wall, they hack, and they slash. Warriors are wounded, limbs are severed, and heroes fall, pierced by spear or cleft by axe. They kill one another with the same ferocity and skill that earned them their place in the hall. It is a spectacle of martial perfection, a daily reenactment of their greatest moments, a chance to test their mettle against the greatest champions of all time. But here lies the first great miracle of Valhalla. Restored and invigorated, the Einherjar march back into the great hall, their spirits high. And here the second part of their daily paradise begins. The eternal feast. The sheer scale and opulence of this banquet are legendary. The warriors take their seats on the mail-strewn benches, and the air fills with the sounds of laughter, boasting, and the singing of epic poems. Their meal is provided by a magical creature, the boar Saramnir. Every evening this great beast is hunted, slaughtered, and cooked by the divine chef, Andrimnir, in his cauldron Eldrimnir. Its flesh is said to be the most succulent and satisfying meat imaginable, enough to feed the entire vast host of the Einherjar. And here is its miracle. By the next morning, Saramnir is whole and alive once more, ready to be hunted again. It is an endless, self-replenishing bounty, ensuring that the heroes will never know hunger. To wash down this magnificent feast, they drink a beverage of equal wonder. It is not water nor common ale. They drink their fill of the finest, most potent mead in all the 9 realms. This divine drink flows not from barrels, but from the udders of a goat, Ern. This magical goat stands upon the roof of Valhalla itself, nibbling on the leaves of the great tree Rar. From her, an inexhaustible river of perfect mead flows down into the drinking horns of the Einherjar. And who serves these legendary heroes? Their cups are kept full by the most beautiful and honored of waitresses, the Valkyries themselves. Their role transformed from fearsome arbiters of battle to graceful and honored companions. The same divine beings who chose them for their valor now attend to their every need. Their presence a constant, living symbol of the hero's elevated status. This daily cycle glorious battle followed by joyous festingies the core of Valhalla's promise. It is an eternity of camaraderie, where a newly fallen Viking can share a horn of mead with a legendary hero from the sagas he grew up hearing. It is an eternity of action, with no room for sorrow or regret. It is a life lived at its most vibrant peak, forever. It is, in every conceivable way, a paradise built for the warrior, a reward perfectly tailored to the values they held most dear. A gilded promise, shining under the eternal gaze of the All-Father. A perfect, unending heaven of blood and mead, or so it seems. We have stood in our mind's eye within the radiant golden halls of Valhalla. We have witnessed the endless cycle of joyous battle and glorious feasting. We have breathed in the promise of a warrior's paradise, a reward so perfectly crafted, so completely attuned to the Norse ideal of honor, that it appears as the ultimate aspiration. It is a masterpiece of divine hospitality, a testament to the All-Father's generosity. But the gods of the Norse are not simple beings. They are complex, driven by passion, wisdom, and most powerfully by fear. And Odin, the master of Valhalla, the god of wisdom, poetry, and war, is the most complex of them all. To understand the truth of his great hall, we must look beyond the gleaming shields and the overflowing horns of mead. we must look into the heart of the god who built it. For Valhalla is not a monument to the glorious past of its inhabitants. It is a desperate fortification against a terrifying, unavoidable future. Beneath the shimmering veneer of paradise lies the grim, unflinching reality of a barracks. And the Einherjar are not honored guests enjoying their retirement. They are conscripts, an army of the dead, gathered for one singular cataclysmic purpose. A purpose known as Ragnarok. This word, Ragnarok, translated as the doom of the gods or twilight of the gods, is the shadow that hangs over every story, every prophecy, every action taken by the divine residents of Asgard. It is not a mere possibility, it is a certainty. The Völuspá, the seeress's prophecy, lays it out in chilling, unambiguous detail. A time will come when the cosmos will unravel. An age of axes, an age of swords, a wind age, a wolf age, before the world plunges into ruin. The prophecies foretell that the monstrous children of Loki will break their bonds. The great wolf Fenrir, whose jaws stretch from earth to heaven, will run free. The world serpent Jormungandr will rise from the depths of the ocean, thrashing and spewing venom that will poison the sky and the sea. From the realm of the dead, a ship made from the fingernails of corpses, Naglfar will set sail, steered by the giant Acherum, carrying the legions of chaos. The fire giants from Muspelheim, led by Surtur with his sword that burns brighter than the sun, will shatter the Bifrost Bridge and march on Asgard. And in the face of this overwhelming onslaught, the gods are doomed. Thor will slay the serpent Jormungandr, but he will take only 9 steps before succumbing to its venom. The god Freyr will fall to the fire giant Surtur. The trickster god Loki will face the stoic Heimdall, and they will kill one another. And Odin, the Allfather, the wisest of the gods, the master of Valhalla, has a fate most terrible of all. He is destined to fight the monstrous wolf Fenrir, and he is destined to be devoured. This is the grim knowledge that gnaws at the heart of Odin. He is not a king presiding over a peaceful eternity. He is a general staring at an unwinnable war on a map, desperately trying to change the outcome. Every action he takes, every sacrifice he makes, from hanging himself on the world tree Yggdrasil for 9 nights to gain the knowledge of the runes, to trading his own eye for a drink from the well of Mimir to gain cosmic wisdom, is driven by this singular, all-consuming fear of the end. And Valhalla is his masterstroke, his grand, desperate gambit. With this dreadful context, let us now walk back through the gleaming halls of Valhalla and re-examine its paradise, through the cold, pragmatic lens of military preparation. Consider once more the daily battle in the great field. In Part 1 we saw it as a joyous sport, a thrilling reenactment of past glories. But is it truly sport to fight to the death every single day for centuries, for millennia? The novelty would surely wear thin. The joyous thrill would inevitably curdle into a relentless, monotonous grind. This is not sport. It is compulsory, high-intensity combat training. The Einherjar are not simply reliving their best moments. They are being drilled relentlessly. They are learning to fight as a single, cohesive unit. The Viking from the 8th century is learning to form a shield wall with the Germanic hero who fell in the Teutoburg forest centuries earlier. They are being conditioned to face unimaginable horrors, to fight without fear of death because death has become a triviality to them. Odin is not rewarding them. He is hardening them, forging them into a perfect weapon, an army that does not fear its own destruction because it is reborn every single evening. The magical healing is not a gift of comfort. It is a logistical necessity to ensure his soldiers are fit for duty the next morning. It is the ultimate, unending boot camp. Now let us return to the feast. That magnificent banquet with its endless supply of meat and mead. Is it truly a celebration? Or is it simply the mess hall, efficiently refueling the troops after a grueling day of training? The magical boar, Saramnir, who is slain and reborn each day, ceases to be a miracle of bounty. He becomes a chilling metaphor for the Einherjar themselves. A resource to be consumed, slaughtered, and miraculously restored, only to serve the exact same purpose the very next day ad infinitum. Their existence is one of eternal consumption for the sake of the war effort. The goat Erin, providing her river of mead, is not a symbol of luxury, but another brilliant logistical solution to the problem of hydrating a massive army. The boisterous camaraderie, the boasting, the singing of sagas while genuine also serves a purpose: maintaining morale. It is the hollow cheer of soldiers in the barracks, sharing stories and drink to forget, for a moment, the battle that awaits them at dawn, and the ultimate unwinnable war that awaits them at the end of time. Even the very architecture of Valhalla betrays its true purpose. The roof of golden shields is not merely opulent decoration. It is a constant, subliminal reminder to every warrior of their identity and function. They are shields of a greater whole. The spearshaft rafters are not just aesthetically pleasing. They symbolize the martial foundation upon which this entire existence is built. And the doors, the 540 doors, each wide enough for 800 warriors. Let us do the mathematics of this divine prophecy. 540 multiplied by 800 equals 432,000. The Grimnismal is giving us the precise number of the first wave of elite soldiers that will erupt from Valhalla, when Heimdall sounds the Gjallarhorn to signal the start of Ragnarok. This is not the architecture of a palace or a paradise. This is the architecture of a military barracks designed for the single most efficient deployment of troops in the history of creation. The grandeur is secondary to the function. It is a fortress, a staging ground, a colossal garrison for Odin's ghost army. This grim reality also forces us to reevaluate the agents of this grand design. The Valkyries. We saw them as beautiful guides, angels of the battlefield who bestowed the honor of Valhalla upon the worthy. But with the truth of Ragnarok laid bare, their role becomes far more sinister. They are not angels of mercy. They are Odin's recruitment officers, his selectors, his soul harvesters. They are Odin's vultures, as some scholars have termed them, circling the battlefields with a cold, calculating purpose. Their choice is not necessarily based on pure, abstract honor. It is based on utility. Odin needs soldiers. The Valkyries are sent to procure the best raw materials for his war machine. They don't just choose the slain. Their power, as described in some poems, is to decide who lives and who dies in the first place, ensuring the most skilled fighters are funneled directly into Odin's army, regardless of what their earthly destiny might have been. A warrior's fate is therefore not entirely in his own hands. He may fight with all the courage in the world, but his destiny is ultimately decided by the strategic needs of a desperate god. To be chosen by a Valkyrie is not an honor freely given. It is a conscription notice being served. The Valkyrie's kiss is not a reward. It is the stamp of military processing, signaling a warrior's transfer from the mortal realm to eternal, compulsory service. Their beauty in the mead hall is a mask for their terrifying function in the field, a calculated effort to make this eternal servitude more palatable. And this brings us to the most profound and devastating aspect of Valhalla's grim reality, the absolute hopelessness of it all. The Einherjar train every day, honing their skills to a divine edge. They feast every night, building their strength. They are the greatest army ever assembled, composed of the most heroic warriors from all of human history. And it is all for nothing. They are training for a battle they are prophesied to lose. Their commander-in-chief, Odin, is prophesied to fall. Their ultimate purpose is not to achieve victory, but to stage a glorious, defiant, and utterly doomed last stand. They are a delaying action. Their role is to fight and die by their god's side, to perhaps by the cosmos a few more moments before the inevitable fire and darkness consumes everything. There is no promise of resurrection after this final battle. There is no Valhalla 2.0. Their journey ends on the plains of Ur, dying a second, final death in the service of a lost cause. This transforms the entire concept from a paradise to a tragedy of cosmic proportions. To be chosen for Valhalla is to be given the honor of dying twice. This is the ultimate deception at the heart of the gilded promise. The Einherjar are trapped in a god-awful Groundhog Day of violence. Their free will and individuality stripped away and replaced by a single grinding purpose. They are no longer men, they are Einherjar. Their names and stories may be sung in the hall, but their identity is now that of a soldier in Odin's Ghost Legion. It is an existence defined by honor, yes, but an honor rooted in futility. It is a life of eternal glory, but a glory that illuminates nothing but their own final, inevitable doom. Valhalla is not a paradise. It is an eternal, hopeless barracks. We have dismantled the gilded facade of Valhalla. We have peered behind the curtain of paradise and found the cold, hard machinery of a military garrison. We have understood the grand, impersonal cosmic equation. Odin's fear of Ragnarok required the creation of an army, and the Einherjar are the sum of that equation. It is a terrifying, abstract truth. But tragedy is rarely abstract. Its truest, sharpest sting is always personal. The cost of Odin's desperate war preparation is not measured in grand celestial terms, but in the currency of individual lives, loves, and loyalties, irrevocably altered by the honor of being chosen. To truly grasp the dark side of Valhalla's promise, we must now turn from the wide-angle lens of prophecy to the portrait of the chosen themselves. We must listen to the specific, often heartbreaking stories of the heroes and villains who were destined for Odin's hall. These are the tragedies of the chosen. Our first story is one of profound and tragic irony. It is the tale of a king caught between two worlds, a hero conscripted into an afterlife he did not believe in. This is the story of Håkon the Good, a 10th century king of Norway. Håkon was unique among the Norse rulers of his time. He was fostered in England at the court of King Athelstan and was raised as a devout Christian. When he returned to Norway to claim his throne, he was known as a just and wise ruler who brought law and a measure of peace to his kingdom. He was the good. His personal faith was central to his identity. He built churches and brought priests to Norway, hoping to convert his people. Yet he ruled over a fiercely pagan warrior aristocracy that clung to the old ways, the old gods, and the old promises of a glorious, violent afterlife. His end came as it did for so many Norse kings in battle. At the Battle of Fitjar, despite being vastly outnumbered by the sons of his predecessor, Eric Bloodaxe, Håkon led his men with legendary courage. He threw off his coat of mail to fight at the forefront, a shining beacon of valor. He secured a great victory, but not without a cost. In the final moments of the battle as the enemy fled, a random arrow struck him a fatal wound. This is where his personal tragedy intersects with the grand design of Valhalla. The skaldic poem Hakonarmal, composed shortly after his death, gives us a breathtaking and deeply unsettling account of what happened next. As King Håkon lies dying on the battlefield, the poem tells us that Odin himself takes notice. He turns to two of his most powerful Valkyries, Gondal and Skogul, and commands them, "Go now," says the Allfather, "and choose among the kings. Find one of Yngvi's kin who shall go to dwell with Odin." The Valkyries descend and they find Håkon. He is chosen. He is worthy. He died a hero's death, leading his men weapon in hand. He fits every criterion for entry into the Hall of the Slain. The Valkyries tell him he is to ride with them to Asgard. But here the poem reveals a profound sense of unease. Håkon, the Christian king, looks at the pagan warrior maidens and asks them, "Why did you decide the battle thus? Were we not worthy of victory from the gods?" The Valkyrie Gondal reassures him, telling him that because of him, their own divine ranks are now strengthened, and he will be welcomed. Imagine his state of mind. He is escorted to Asgard, and the gods themselves prepare for his arrival. Odin sends Hermr and Bragi, two of his sons, to greet the celebrated king. Bragi promises him a hero's welcome. He will have peace with the Einherjar. He will drink ale with the Aesir. But Hakon's response is one of deep misgiving. He stands there, bloody from his final battle, and declares, "I will keep my own weapons." He remains suspicious, an outsider even at the very moment of his greatest honor. The poem ends by describing how this king, who had tried to bring the light of Christ to his people, was now welcomed into a pagan afterlife, a hero bound to a cause that directly contradicted his soul's deepest convictions. His tragedy is not death. It is his destination. He is a conscript who does not believe in the war he is now forced to join. He is a permanent resident of a heaven he never prayed to, bound to fight for gods he had renounced. His story perfectly illustrates the truth of Valhalla. It is not a reward tailored to the individual's spirit, but a mandatory draft based on one's martial utility. Hakon the Good became another soldier in Odin's barracks, his personal faith and identity rendered utterly irrelevant. If Hakon represents the unwilling conscript, our next figure represents the ideal recruit, and his story reveals the cold, utilitarian calculus of Odin's selection process. Let us speak of the very man whose sons Hakon defeated, Eric Bloodaxe. The name itself tells the story. Eric was the archetypal Viking king, violent, ambitious, and utterly ruthless. He is said to have killed several of his own brothers to secure his power. His life was a testament to the axe and the sword. And when he finally fell in battle in England, Odin's reaction was not one of somber welcome, but of eager anticipation. The poem Eiríksmál, likely commissioned by Eric's own queen, describes a scene of great excitement in Valhalla. Odin awakens from a dream of a great hero arriving. He commands the Einherjar and the Valkyries to prepare the hall, to lay out the golden benches and fill the goblets with wine, as if for a state visit. The god Bragi asks Odin why there is such a thunderous noise, as if thousands are arriving. Odin replies that it is Eric Bloodaxe, and he is coming to the hall. He tells Bragi to go and greet him, but the most revealing part is Bragi's next question. He asks the Allfather, "Why did you take the victory from him if he seemed so brave to you? Why let such a valuable warrior die?" Odin's reply lays bare the grim reality of his recruitment strategy. Because it is uncertain, the Allfather says, when the Grey Wolf will come to the seat of the gods. Odin took Eric from the world of the living not as a reward for his valor, but because Odin needed him. He needed this famously brutal and effective warrior to bolster the ranks in preparation for Ragnarok. The decision was purely strategic. Bragi then asks why Odin is so particularly excited about Eric. Odin's answer is chilling. He is excited, he says, because many warriors have followed him from the battlefield. Eric's value is not just his own prowess. It is his effectiveness as a killer, his ability to send a large contingent of other slain warriors to Valhalla along with him. His welcome is not a celebration of his life, but an acknowledgement of his high body count. Eric Bloodaxe's tragedy is the ultimate reduction of a man to a tool. His entire life, filled with conquest, kingship, and ambition, is posthumously reframed as nothing more than a highly successful recruitment drive for Odin's army. He is not being honored as a king. He is being processed as a valuable asset. His welcome is not a gesture of grace. It is a performance review, and he has passed with flying colors. His story confirms that the gates of Valhalla swing open widest not necessarily for the most honorable, but for the most lethally efficient. Perhaps no story better encapsulates the Viking ideal of a glorious death than that of the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok. His tale, whether historical or pure legend, has become the definitive example of facing one's end with fearless defiance in anticipation of Valhalla. But even in this triumphant story, a deeper tragedy of the chosen can be found. As the saga tells it, captured by his enemy, the Northumbrian king Aella, Ragnar is condemned to a horrific death, to be thrown into a pit of vipers. As the snakes swarm and bite, delivering their venom, Ragnar does not scream or beg for mercy. Instead, he is said to have laughed, composing his death song. He proclaims his eagerness to die, for the Valkyries sent by Odin are waiting to escort him to the high seat of Valhalla. How the little pigs would grunt, he famously declares, if they knew how the old boar suffers. He dies not in fear, but in triumphant expectation. On the surface, this is the ultimate validation of the warrior ethos. His belief in Valhalla gives him the strength to transcend unimaginable pain and fear. But let us apply the grim reality we have uncovered. Is this defiance a true act of free will? Or is it the final, perfect expression of a lifetime of cultural and psychological conditioning? The promise of Valhalla, as we have seen, is not just an offer. It is a powerful tool of motivation. It is a divine propaganda campaign that encourages warriors to seek out violent death, to see it as the pinnacle of achievement, rather than a tragic end. Ragnar's laughter in the snake pit is a testament to the success of this campaign. He is the perfect soldier, so thoroughly indoctrinated that he not only accepts his fate but celebrates it, his mind fixed on the promised reward. The tragedy here is subtle but profound. It is the potential loss of true agency. Has Ragnar made a choice, or is he simply playing out a script written for him by the gods and his culture? The promise of paradise has become a psychological mechanism that makes a man embrace his own horrific demise. It channels his fear and his will to live into a single acceptable outlet, a good death. It is a magnificent performance, but one wonders if the actor is even aware of the director who has guided his every move. Ragnar's tragedy is that his greatest moment of defiance may also be his moment of most complete subjugation to the will of the gods. If the stories of kings and heroes show the cost paid by mortals, our final tale reveals that the system of Valhalla is so ruthless that it consumes even its own divine agents. It is the story of a chooser of the slain who dared to choose for herself. This is the great tragedy of the Valkyrie Brynhildr. Her story is woven throughout the epic Volsunga saga. Brynhildr is not just any Valkyrie. She is powerful, proud, and a favorite of Odin. But she possesses a fatal flaw in the eyes of the All-Father: an independent will. Odin decrees that in a battle between two kings, a king named Jalmgunr must be victorious. But Brynhildr, for reasons of her own, perhaps she deemed the other king, Agnr, more worthy, defies the All-Father. She uses her power to grant victory to Agnr, striking down the one Odin had chosen. Odin's retribution is swift and terrible. For her disobedience, he condemns her to a fate worse than death for a divine being. He strips her of her Valkyrie status and curses her to become a mortal woman. He will imprison her in a remote castle, surrounding it with a wall of magical, unquenchable fire. There she will sleep until a man brave enough to ride through the flames comes to claim her for a wife. Brynhildr pleads with him and extracts one small concession: that the man who awakens her will be a hero who knows no fear. That hero is the great dragon slayer Sigurd. He rides through the flames, awakens her, and they fall deeply, passionately in love, pledging to marry. But fate, and the machinations of others, are cruel. Through a magic potion, Sigurd's memory of Brynhildr is erased, and he is tricked into marrying another woman, Gudrun. Later, he is further tricked into helping Gudrun's brother, Gunnar, win Brynhildr for himself by deceitfully riding through the flames in Gunnar's guise. The ensuing story is a maelstrom of jealousy, wounded pride, betrayal, and heartbreak. Brynhildr, believing Sigurd has betrayed her, is consumed by a grief so profound it turns to a burning desire for vengeance. She manipulates her husband Gunnar into murdering Sigurd, the only man she has ever loved. But upon his death, her rage evaporates, replaced by an all-consuming sorrow. With Sigurd gone, she sees no reason to live. She takes her own life, but with one final tragic request: that her funeral pyre be built next to Sigurd's, so that they may be joined in death as they could not be in life. Brynhildr's story is the ultimate testament to the cruelty of the system she once served. She, a divine chooser of the slain, becomes a victim of Odin's absolute authority. Her tragedy shows that there is no room for compassion, independent judgment, or personal love within Odin's grand military strategy. To defy the commander's orders, even for a noble reason, is to be broken and cast aside. Her fate is a chilling cautionary tale for any Einherjar or Valkyrie, who might imagine that they are anything more than cogs in the great machine of Ragnarok. If this is how Odin treats his own celestial servants, what true honor or agency can a mere mortal soul ever hope to possess in his hall? These stories, etched into the memory of the North, are more than just epic tales. They are the fine print on the contract of Valhalla. They are the personal testimonies of the chosen. In Hakon we see the unwilling conscript. In Eric the valued weapon. In Ragnar the perfectly conditioned soldier. And in Brynhildr, the loyal agent made a victim by her own heart. Together they paint a devastating picture. They transform the faceless, glorious army of the Einherjar into a collection of individual tragedies. Each warrior in that great hall has a story, a family left behind, a fate rewritten by the needs of the gods. The promise of glory that led them to Valhalla was real, but it was a glory that came at the cost of their freedom, their faith, and for some their very soul. The gilded promise of paradise was paid for, in full, by the personal tragedies of the chosen. We have followed the path of the slain. We have marveled at the golden promise of a warrior's paradise. We have uncovered the grim military reality lurking beneath its splendor. And we have grieved for the personal tragedies of its most celebrated residents. Now we must take our final step. We must step back from the stories, from the characters, and from the battles and ask the most fundamental question of all. What does it all mean? This is the philosophical heart of our inquiry. We must now weigh Valhalla not on the scales of myth and legend, but on the scales of reason, meaning, and purpose. We must probe its existential core. For when we do, the image of a mere barracks, however grim, gives way to something even more profound and desolate. A magnificent, echoing monument to utter hopelessness. This is Valhalla, the philosophical prison. The central pillar upon which all other philosophical inquiry into Valhalla rests is a single crushing fact. Its purpose is futile. Let us be clear. A last stand against overwhelming odds can be the very definition of heroism. The Spartans at Thermopylae, facing the Persian horde, fought with the slim hope that their sacrifice might inspire victory. But the Einherjar are not the Spartans. Their situation is infinitely worse. They do not fight with the hope of victory. They fight with the absolute, divine, prophetic certainty of defeat. The prophecies, the very source of Odin's knowledge, are not vague warnings. They are a detailed itinerary of doom. Odin will be swallowed by Fenrir. Thor will die from Jormungandr's venom. Surtur will burn the world. This is not a possible outcome. It is the pre-written final chapter. Therefore, every single action taken within Valhalla, every swing of a sword in the training yard, every drop of meat consumed for strength, every boast of valor shouted in the Hallis performed in the full knowledge of its ultimate fruitlessness. This transforms the entire endeavor from a heroic struggle into a cosmic absurdity. It is an act of defiance, yes, but a defiance that the universe has already accounted for and dismissed. Compare this to the concept of heaven in many other world religions. Heaven is typically portrayed as an eternal static reward, a final state of blissful peace, a communion with the divine, an end to all struggle. Valhalla offers the exact opposite. It is not an end to struggle. It is the eternal continuation of struggle, with the added psychological torment of knowing it will all amount to nothing. The Einherjar are not being rewarded. They are being used. They are the sandbags being piled against a rising tide that has already been measured and is known to be insurmountable. Their purpose is not to win the war, but to make the final, apocalyptic battle as spectacular and bloody as possible. They are the extras in the final act of a divine tragedy, assembled to die gloriously for a cause that was lost before they were even born. This is not honor. It is a sentence. an eternal sentence to a meaningful death in the service of a meaningless war. What, then, is the psychological consequence of such an existence? For a day, a week, a year, a warrior might revel in it. The thrill of combat without consequence, the endless camaraderie. But for an eternity, imagine the slow, creeping dread. The 1,000th time you are resurrected from a mortal wound. The millionth time you feast on the flesh of the same magical boar. The billionth time you hear the same stories of valor, knowing they are all just prologues to the same inevitable disastrous ending. The joy must surely curdle into a monotonous routine. The glory must surely tarnish into a grim, joyless duty. The daily battle ceases to be a sport and becomes a form of psychological conditioning. It desensitizes the soul, burning away everything but the warrior function. It creates a state of perpetual high adrenaline readiness for a battle that never truly matters, a kind of divine post-traumatic stress disorder played out on a loop. The feast hall, with its forced joviality, becomes a place not of celebration, but of desperate distraction, a noisy, brightly lit room designed to drown out the silent, screaming truth of their predicament. This is the horror of the god-awful Groundhog Day scenario. It is a trap not of walls and bars but of time and purpose. In this light, the greatest mercy in Valhalla is that the Einherjar are destined to die a second time at Ragnarok, for that final death is their only possible escape from the maddening repetition of their so-called paradise. Their ultimate reward is not the life they lead in Valhalla, but their eventual release from it through annihilation. This existence also necessitates a profound loss of self. A man arrives in Valhalla defined by his life. He was a father, a husband, a farmer, a skald, a jarl. He had hopes, dreams, and loves outside of the battlefield. But in Odin's hall, all of that is stripped away. He is redefined by a single even this death and a single quality, his martial skill. He becomes simply an Einherjar. His individuality is sublimated into the collective. His personal history is erased in favor of his military utility. He is a number, one of the 432,000 who will march from the doors, his unique identity lost in the service of a collective feudal purpose. This brings us to the very concept of heroism within the Norse worldview. The culture celebrated heroes who defied fate, who carved their own legends. Yet, the cosmology is underpinned by the concept of Wyrd, or fate, an inexorable force woven by the Norns for gods and mortals alike. This creates a deep philosophical paradox. Is a warrior truly making a choice when he bravely charges into battle, seeking a glorious death? Or is he merely fulfilling a role that was written for him at the beginning of time? Is Ragnar's laughter in the snake pit an act of supreme free will? Or is it the final perfect performance of a man who has been conditioned his entire life to act in precisely this way, his fate already woven? Odin's selection process through the Valkyries removes any doubt. A warrior's entry into Valhalla is not the result of their choice alone. It is the result of Odin's choice. They are chosen. Their fate is seized and repurposed. The very idea of heroism becomes complicated. If your actions are predestined, if your ultimate end is to serve as a pawn in a divine, hopeless game, then is your courage your own? Or is it simply a quality you were given, like the color of your eyes, to better fulfill your designated function? Valhalla, in this sense, is the ultimate expression of Norse determinism, a place where the illusion of choice is burned away, revealing only the grim machinery of fate. The final, and perhaps most damning, piece of philosophical evidence against Valhalla being a true paradise is the fact that it was not the only option. In fact, it might not have even been the best option for a fallen warrior. The texts are clear on this point. Odin does not get all the slain. Half of those who fall in combat are chosen by an entirely different deity, the powerful Vanir goddess Freya. She takes her chosen half to her own hall in her realm of Folkvanger, the field of the people or army field. And the most crucial detail, as stated by Snorri Sturluson in the Prose Edda, is this: Freya gets the first choice. Let that sink in. the goddess of love, beauty, fertility, and a form of magic called seer, has first pick of the fallen heroes. Only after she has made her selection does Odin receive the remainder for his Valhalla. This single fact completely upends the hierarchy. Valhalla is not the supreme, exclusive club for the warrior elite. It is at best a co-equal destination and at worst the second choice. While the descriptions of Folkvanger are far less detailed than those of Valhalla, its very nature invites speculation. Ruled by a goddess of life and fertility, not a god of war and death, could Folkvanger be a more balanced afterlife? A place where valor is honored, but not to the exclusion of all else? A place where heroes might find not endless battle, but perhaps peace, love, and reunion? We do not know for certain, but the mere existence of Folkvanger, and Freya's priority in choosing its residents, serves as a powerful critique of Valhalla. It suggests that there is another way, perhaps a better way, that does not involve being a conscript in a doomed army. And what of the vast majority of people? Those who did not die in battle? They went to Helheim. Our modern sensibilities, shaped by the Christian concept of hell, imagine this as a place of punishment. But for the Norse it was not. Hell was primarily depicted as a neutral, if gloomy place. It was a continuation of existence, a place where you would be reunited with your ancestors, your family, your kin who died of old age or sickness. Now ask yourself honestly, which is the true paradise? An eternity of noise, violence, and daily slaughter in service of a hopeless cause, cut off from your loved ones forever? Or a quiet, perhaps somber but peaceful eternity spent in the company of your entire family line? The warrior culture may have prized Valhalla, but from a purely human perspective, the peaceful continuity of Helheim could be seen as infinitely more desirable. The choice between Valhalla and hell is not a choice between heaven and hell. It is a choice between a glorious, violent, and feudal existence, and a quiet, communal, and peaceful one. The fact that Valhalla was considered superior speaks volumes about the brutal values of the society that conceived it, not about its intrinsic desirability as an eternal home. When we assemble all these pieces, the final picture is undeniable. Valhalla is stripped of its glory and revealed for what it is: a philosophical dead end. It is a system built on the fundamental hopelessness of a known defeat. It is a psychological prison that grinds down individuality into military function through endless, monotonous violence. It is an expression of a deterministic cosmos where free will is an illusion and heroism is merely the effective performance of a pre-written role. And finally, it is shown to be just one of several afterlives, and arguably not even the most desirable. The promise of Valhalla is perhaps the greatest deception the gods ever perpetrated on humanity. It takes the most vital and heroic members of the species, lures them with the promise of eternal honor, and enslaves them in an eternal hopeless barracks. It is a gilded cage, a magnificent tomb, an abattoir for heroes. It is a warrior's paradise only if your definition of paradise is an eternity spent as a well-fed, well-armed pawn, forever preparing for a game you have already lost. And so our longship returns to shore. We have journeyed through the mists of time, navigated the treacherous currents of myth, and stood within the great golden-roofed hall that has haunted the imagination of the world for 1,000 years. We have walked its floors as both honored guest and as critical observer. Now, with the echoes of feasting and the ghosts of battle swirling around us, we arrive at our final reckoning. We must face one last time the fundamental question that has driven our entire inquiry: Valhalla. Is it a warrior's paradise, the ultimate reward for a life of valor? Or is it something infinitely darker and eternal, hopeless barracks, a gilded cage for the glorious dead? The simple, and perhaps unsatisfying, answer is that it is not one or the other. The profound and deeply unsettling truth is that it is and must be both. The very power of the myth, its enduring grip on the human psyche, lies not in choosing between these two poles, but in understanding that they are two sides of the same blood-stained, golden coin. The paradise and the prison are one. Let us not, in our haste to deconstruct the myth, dismiss the sheer power of its promise. We must first honor the paradise. To the mortal warrior living in the harsh, unforgiving world of the Viking Aegea, world of brutal winters, sudden violence, rampant disease, and a life expectancy that was often cruelly short, Valhalla was not a philosophical concept to be debated. It was a beacon. It was a blazing fire in the encroaching darkness, a promise that a life of courage, a life spent defending one's kin and carving out a place in a hostile world, had ultimate meaning. It was a brilliantly engineered solution to the most fundamental of human fears, the fear of a meaningless death. In the culture of the Norsemen, to die of old age, the straw death, was to fade away, to become a footnote. But to die in the fury of battle, sword in hand, was to seize control of one's own narrative. The promise of Valhalla transformed death from a biological end into a triumphant transition. It turned the final ragged breath on a bloody field into a gasp of ecstatic anticipation. The Valkyrie's kiss was not an end. It was a graduation. This belief was the engine of the Viking spirit. It fueled the explorer's courage to sail into uncharted seas. It gave the warrior the heart to stand in the shield wall against overwhelming odds. It allowed a legend like Ragnar Lothbrok to laugh in a pit of vipers, his mind's eye already fixed on the high seat and the waiting drinking horn. From this mortal vantage point, from the grit and grime and fear of the battlefield, Valhalla could be nothing but a paradise. It was the ultimate validation, the divine assurance that their struggles mattered, that their sacrifice would be remembered and rewarded in an eternity of the very things they valued most: camaraderie, conflict, and honor. To deny the power of this vision is to misunderstand the people who conceived it. It was their truth, their hope, and their strength. But this radiant vision, as we have discovered, is a carefully constructed illusion. It is a magnificent curtain, and behind it lies a stage set for a tragedy of cosmic proportions. For every element of the paradise we have found a corresponding and terrifying component of the prison. The glorious hall we now know is not a palace. It is a barracks architecturally designed for the single purpose of deploying a vast army to its doom. The endless feast is not a celebration. It is the mess hall, efficiently refueling troops for the next day's grueling training. The magical boar Saramnir, reborn each day to be slaughtered, is a horrifying mirror to the Einherjar themselves, an eternal resource, endlessly consumed for the war effort. The daily battle is not a joyous sport. It is a relentless, monotonous, and compulsory drill session, designed to harden souls and condition them for a final hopeless massacre. And at the center of it all stands the Allfather, Odin, not as a benevolent host, but as a desperate, terrified general. His wisdom has shown him the end of all things. His own death, the fall of his sons, the destruction of his world. Valhalla is his response. It is not an act of generosity. It is an act of fear. He is a god hoarding souls, a commander conscripting the dead, all in a futile attempt to defy a fate that the Norns have already woven. The Valkyries are not angels of honor. They are his recruitment officers, his selectors, his soul harvesters, choosing not based on pure virtue, but on military utility. This grim reality is paid for by the tragedies of the chosen. It is paid for by the Christian King Hakon, conscripted into a pagan afterlife he never sought. It is paid for by the ruthless warlord Eric Bloodaxe, valued not as a king, but as a weapon and an effective killer. It is paid for by the defiant hero Ragnar, whose final triumph was the ultimate expression of his own psychological conditioning. And most poignantly, it is paid for by the Valkyrie Brynhildr, a divine agent of the system who was broken and discarded the moment she expressed a will of her own. When we add the final philosophical weight, the crushing certainty of Ragnarok's outcome, the loss of individuality, the existence of potentially more peaceful afterlives like Folkvang or Helheim's case becomes overwhelming. The paradise is a facade. The underlying structure is that of a hopeless, eternal barracks. The Einherjar are not honored guests. They are prisoners of war captured by fate itself. Herein lies the profound truth of Valhalla. It is not an either/or proposition. The myth's enduring genius is that it forces both realities to exist in the same space. Valhalla is a paradox. It is a beautiful lie wrapped around a terrible truth. It is a heaven built on the foundations of a hell of futility. It is the story of men who achieve the ultimate glory, only for that glory to be rendered meaningless. This duality is the very heart of the Norse worldview. This was a culture that saw the world in shades of stark and brutal contrast. A world of breathtaking natural beauty and devastating deadly winters. A people who valued fierce independence, and yet felt shackled by the inescapable power of fate. A people who celebrated life with ferocious joy, all while knowing that the wolf was always at the door, that the end was not a possibility, but a certainty. Valhalla is the perfect mythological expression of this worldview. It says that heroism is real, that courage is the highest virtue, but it also says that even the greatest heroism and the purest courage cannot alter the final tragic outcome. It tells us that the ultimate meaning is found not in victory, but in the nobility of the struggle itself. The Einherjar's purpose is not to win at Ragnarok. Their purpose is to face the unwinnable battle with a roar of defiance, to stand by their chieftain's side, and to die so gloriously that the very cosmos will remember their stand, even as it burns to ash around them. In this, Valhalla moves beyond a simple story and becomes a profound philosophical statement. It asks us, what is the nature of a worthwhile life? Is it a life of peace and comfort? Or is it a life of struggle and purpose, even if that purpose is doomed? The Norse answer embodied in Valhalla is clear. A short, glorious life of defiant struggle is infinitely preferable to a long, quiet life of insignificance. It is a hard philosophy, a bleak one perhaps, but it is also one of magnificent, terrible beauty. The golden halls of Valhalla may be a myth, a tale from a world long past, but the questions it raises are eternal. It has echoed through our culture, shaping our modern fantasy with its archetypes of noble, doomed warriors and its themes of courage against impossible odds. It continues to fascinate us because, on some level, we all understand its central conflict. We all live with the knowledge of our own mortality, our own personal Ragnarok. We all search for a purpose that will give our brief time meaning. We all struggle with the tension between our desire for glory and our fear of futility. The myth of Valhalla does not give us easy answers. It does not offer a gentle, comforting paradise. Instead, it offers a challenge. It holds up a mirror to the very nature of sacrifice and heroism, and it asks us to look at the cost. It presents the ultimate warrior's paradise, and then forces us to see the hopeless barracks concealed within. It is a story of honor and bondage, of triumph and tragedy, of a gilded heaven that might just be the most glorious prison ever imagined. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Odin's Hall. We hope this journey through the world of Norse mythology has been as fascinating for you as it has been for us. If you found this exploration of lore and legend enlightening, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the Eldritch Codex for more investigations into the stories that have shaped our world. Don't forget to click the notification bell, so you won't miss our next journey into the archives of the strange and the profound. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. After hearing the evidence, what is your final verdict on Valhalla? A paradise worthy of a hero's death? Or a prison of eternal feudal conflict? And are there any other myths, legends, or ancient mysteries you'd like to see us unravel? Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking the knowledge hidden in the shadows.